What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome into the West Virginia Postgame Show here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you guys tuning in with us here if you're with us live. I know it's sometimes hard to digest some of this content after West Virginia losses, especially after, a second one consecutive now, back-to-back losses. A loss on homecoming, unfortunately, is what it amounts to here for West Virginia. Very rough fourth quarter for the Mountaineers, and it ends up being a 48-34 win for the Cowboys over the Mountaineers, unfortunately. Um, as always, we're the Country Roads webcast team here to host these post-game shows on the West Virginia Voice of College Football channel and Big 12 Voice of College Football channels. If you're in here with us live, we're watching our playback, be sure to hit us with a thumbs up on the video. It really helps us out. And if you're a West Virginia fan, Big 12 fan, college football fan, be sure and subscribe to either the West Virginia Voice of College Football channel or the Big 12 Voice of College Football channel. We'd like you to subscribe to both of those. But I'm Jordan Cruz, and I got my co-host Brad with me here. Helps me on the CRW show here on the CRW podcast, the Country Roads webcast channel here on YouTube as well. But Brad, I know a lot of things to talk about. Might be a bit of a vent session here, but that's okay. Immediate reactions, that's what these are kind of for sometimes. We want to hear your all's thoughts as well, so drop those in the chat, and you guys can vent with us. But immediate thoughts just kind of coming out of this loss now. Brad, how are you feeling, man?
There it is. There it is. That's the Neil Brown team that I've watched for the past 4 years, and nothing could say it louder than that right there. It really is. And what in the world has happened to this team to just absolutely flip flop and go from a top tier defense to just something that couldn't hold water in a bucket to offense seems awesome. I mean, Preston Fox, hell of a game, man. Like, looking great. Absolutely stunning. Devin Carter still showed up. Garrett Green balled out and had a good day, other than the interception, which was really bad. And started strong with special teams, and then they just fell apart. So, what is this team's identity? Who are we? What do we do? Because right now I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, it's I don't know, man. I'm right there.
Because it's like, we're sitting here saying for the first, few games this season, oh, this is a hell of a disciplined team. This is a team that doesn't make mistakes. They're not shooting themselves in the foot. They're doing it. They're doing the right way. And then all of a sudden, it's like we go into a bye week and we're a completely different team.
Yeah. I'm in the fourth quarter. That's what I've got literally right down on the side of my notes here is mistakes killed WVU this quarter. And I got a couple sequences of those mistakes I want to talk about that to me were huge sequences in the game. We'll get into those momentarily. But, just my initial thoughts and kind of response to what you said is that I don't really understand it either. I'm wondering if, I know Trey Latham was a big-time player for us, but it can't be that big of a difference that we're going from, giving up less than 20 in our Big 12 games or, right around that to having shootouts in these past two Big 12 games. I know he was a big part of our defense. And, I thought getting Aubrey Burks back would make a difference. I thought it did at times. He made plays out there. But definitely after these past two results, not only the defense playing as poorly as they have in those two games, but the fact that they've both been shootouts has to make you wonder if you're a Mountaineer fan, if those first two games, that early part of the season for West Virginia was a little bit of fool's gold with this defense right now, just because of how we've seen them play the past couple of weeks.
When it comes to that, I'm going to hold firm on my standing that I think that Trey Latham was that guy. I really do. I think Trey Latham was an absolute monster. And I had said it multiple times. He was well on his way to a freshman All-American season. Like, Trey Latham was killer. Absolutely killer. And, the next one behind him is a true freshman that is, playing his butt off. But to be honest, you can tell. You can tell he's a freshman. It's just that kind of difference. And, I want to talk about keep focused on that. Aubrey Burks, has shown his times to not be what he was last year, and that's just frustrating, but you're not going to often just like put it all on him. But man, sometimes he's just also not there. Sometimes he's making big plays and it's just kind of feast or famine with him. And, for whatever reason, people keep picking on Beanie Bishop. And sometimes he makes a play, but also sometimes he's just the one that's getting scored on too, And I don't know why it is that people keep targeting him, but there's a reason. And if you notice, man, I mean, guys are making plays around him, but he's also making big plays himself. So feast or famine again. And it's just It's just question marks everywhere. And year 5, man, come on.
Yeah, it is, man. It's I don't know. I don't know what's happened with this defense. Like you said, I know Trey Latham was a big time a part of it, but you got to be able to bounce back, have that next man up mentality, and maybe you do take a step back, but there's absolutely no way that you should be having the defensive line, particularly, is who I'm most disappointed with. If I'm going to single out a
Yeah,
group tonight, man,
disappeared.
yeah, I mean that's the group that we were talking about early in the season. West Virginia was playing, 9 or 10 deep. They were dominating in the trenches. Even against Penn State, West Virginia battled well in the trenches in that game early in the season. The only loss they had prior to that Houston game. So we were really writing home about that defensive line. But I think, this is now back-to-back weeks that they've really gotten dominated up front by the, opposing offense. Obviously in this game when, Ollie Gordon. But, I mean, Ollie Gordon's a freak. You got to give it to him on that.
Guy, insane player, man.
Yeah,
that guy was just running. That was C.J. Donaldson last year. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like that was
Well, that's
man
one
that
thing
nobody
that
can
I'm
stop.
like late in the game when he's busting those big runs, when they're trying to seal the deal, and it's like we know the run's coming and he's still busting those plays. What I kept
Dude, it's the
thinking in
fourth
my
quarter,
head,
and he said, "I'm still running full speed
yeah.
at you guys."
And
He
what I
said, "There
kept
is no
thinking in my
slowdown
head,
for
bro,
me."
was this is what West Virginia was supposed to be this season. That's what we were supposed to be able to do. Our offensive line was supposed to be, really good that, we can hammer teams to where late in games we're dominating time of possession and we're running it, still know it's coming. And CJ Donaldson's supposed to be making that play. So, not to discredit Oklahoma State or anything, but to me, it's just a little bit disappointing for me as a West Virginia fan because I'm watching that happen and I'm seeing Oklahoma State at the end be more physical, be the team that makes less mistakes in the fourth quarter, and their offensive line dominate when we know the run's coming and they're still breaking big game-sealing, game-clinching runs. And I can't help but wonder, like, and think that's what we were supposed to be. That was supposed to be West Virginia, and earlier in the season it was. But I tabbed this the contender or pretender game all week leading up to it, and unfortunately, don't think West Virginia's at that contender level just yet.
Yeah, no, certainly not. Which offensively right now we're looking like we could be. If the defense happens to regain and regroup. But like you said, that front defensive line has just absolutely disappeared. Like we were getting pressure quite consistently through every game in the beginning. It's because our defensive line was getting pushed, and we're just not getting it. And I'm going to be one to be honest here. We pat these guys on the back a lot of the times, but I sent it in our group chat earlier, and I was like, Sean Martin has not made a play since he blocked the field goal. And if I even remember then, him blocking that field goal was the first thing that I had seen him do, I think, that game. And, to be 6'5", 6'6", whatever he is, monstrous of a man, like I don't know if it's like I've just not seen him, if he's not making plays, but he's just nowhere to be found right now. And it's like, what happened? And you cost us a game not too long ago. I mean, like, are you getting your butt chewed behind the scenes and like you're upset about it? You know what I mean? Because you went down because you weren't that hurt and cost us 20 seconds, at the end of an important game. Maybe, maybe he's not responding well to that, but, love you, big man. But also I'm at the point where I'm like, give me somebody else. If I'm not going to see you, if you're not going to make plays after like, if I show up all year and talked about you so much and then you're just going to like disappear, like, no, you got to turn that around, young man.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's a letdown for a lot of guys on that defensive line, and they haven't been playing up to par, none of them. So don't disagree with your statements there. And then even Steady Eddie, as I call him, Eddie V, there at the end on that final play, got absolutely shook by Ollie Gordon. In the hole, he was in the right place, but then Ollie Gordon just like I said, just being a freak making a play there. So definitely a letdown for the West Virginia defense the past couple of weeks, and the defensive line particularly. Especially in this game. So I like the way you put it, though, rebuild and regroup, because West Virginia's certainly going to have to try and do that now as they hit the road next week, travel to UCF. But the good news for Mountaineer fans, I guess, is that it's the one time, first time in a long time that you get a conference opponent on the East Coast. So it's within, traveling distance if you're a Mountaineer fan that, doesn't get a chance to go to too many conference away games because of the distance, get one in Florida. So it's a little bit more within, striking distance to where you can maybe want to travel to that game. And if you do want to look to maybe do that and go see West Virginia play on the road next week, great source to be able to find those tickets is ticketsmarter.com. You can save on your next trip to the big game with TicketSmarter. Get $10 off an order of $100 or more by using the promo code BIG, or get $20 off an order of $300 or more using the promo code BIG20. Use the promo code as much as you like. TicketSmarter gives you the most competitive prices on the secondary market, and your purchase is safe and guaranteed. get in the game with Ticketsmarter.com and the Ticketsmarter mobile app. And remember the promo codes BIG and BIG20. Think smarter, ticket smarter. So, there's a great deal. You can get some on some tickets there, just exclusively from the Voice of College Football Network here using our codes there. If you're looking for some game tickets, be sure to check out Ticketsmarter.com there for those. But getting on some of your all's thoughts, I know I flashed some of them on the screen throughout, but want to get into some of the standout moments as well, Brad. But I'll touch on some of these comments because I think that there's a couple. I pulled up one of them here from Nick DTV, and then Boring Gaming as well says something similar. Hate to say it, time to clean house. So I guess, this is something we have to gauge. We talked about early in the season having to gauge this, after that game against Penn State. But then West Virginia reels off 4 straight wins, and we were talking about, Neil Brown's off the hot seat, and who knows if he keeps this up, could be, up for Big 12 Coach of the Year votes or something even. So how quickly, after a couple of weeks, things can change for the Mountaineers instead of, they were 4-1, 2-1, and looked like for a minute they would be 5-1 and 3-1 in the conference, but instead, a couple weeks later now, 4-3 overall, 2-2 in the conference. Couple disappointing losses, and I think most disappointing is how as you mentioned earlier, the defense has kind of switched. So, in your opinion, where are you at in terms of this coaching staff and I guess their status, the temperature of their seat at this time? As far as Neil Brown's concerned.
How hot his seat is, it's definitely hotter after a loss, of course. But at this point, it's just too much of a wait and see moment, to really gauge how burning it is. But technically speaking, in Ren Baker's mind, Ren Baker could be giving him to the end of the season no matter what, and that's just that could be where we're at. But for me personally, man, and each loss it probably feels different, or after every game I feel differently about it. But I've been thinking about it a lot recently, and for me, it's just, I really like our team, and I just sat here and dogged our players a little bit just because I'm really frustrated and, I'm a fan and, sometimes we can get frustrated. But I really like the guys that we have on the team, man. Garrett Green's a baller. Nico Markill's a hell of a future. We got West Virginia guys up front. But, there's so much talent that has not been developed on this team. So much talent. And, you talk about our line a little bit ago, our line should be way steps better than what they were this year. They might be playing, at a high potential, or high levels, but they're not dominating, right now especially. And most of these guys have been together for 3 years by now. If they would have had a proper coach, really, I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking out my hiney, but am I the only one that feels that way? You know what I mean? There's just been no.
You're not the only one because I've seen a lot of people, sharing similar sentiments to what Nick D and Boring Gaming have. So I think there's a lot of people that agree with you a little bit there. I'm not there yet. I think that because, like I said, you look back a couple of weeks ago when we were 4-1, and there were several things that I was pointing out that we had diagnosed as issues that this coaching staff had done a great job of improving. Even some of the play calls were really good, in the Houston game and then a couple of games prior. This game, there were a couple of series I had issues with the play call, and I'll talk about some of those momentarily. So I think, judging it on a game-by-game basis, this game was a letdown coaching-wise. I'll say that. But I'm certainly not in the point where I'm ready to clean house or ready to say Neil Brown's back on the hot seat quite yet, personally. But I think that right now you're certainly at a crossroads with this program. And I couldn't help but think as West Virginia, set up for that 4th down late that Oklahoma State ultimately got the stop on. They showed a shot of Neil Brown, and he's kind of squatted down, getting ready to watch the play. And in my head, I'm just thinking, I wonder if he's, watching this play super nervous, this could be a big play that goes to determining, my job status moving forward, is something like that. So, and this was a very important game, make no bones about it. And West Virginia had a chance to remain a contender in the Big 12 title race. Instead, Oklahoma State moves up a rung, and West Virginia, drops down to a 500 record within conference play. So, certainly there were some coaching mistakes in this game. I think Mike Gundy, very seasoned veteran coach, probably won the coaching battle.
I don't know if I froze or if you froze, Jordan.
Might have been me. I think it's catching back up now. I'm not sure. You got me now?
Yeah.
Okay, good deal. But I'm not sure if, I can hop back on the Neil Brown, fire Neil Brown train just after, a couple bad performances. I want to see the complete body of work, much like, Ren Breaker's probably going to want to, because I think the majority of the season I've been happy with the coaching. We've played 7 games now. I'd say 5 of those I was pretty much pretty happy with the coaching job and happy with some of the during the first 4 years of this coaching staff that we hadn't seen. So for me personally, I can't, go against that and say fire him now just after a couple bad games. But I will say it's got me, definitely questioning some things and watching it through a little bit of a different lens moving forward. Because like I said, I definitely think you're at a crossroads right now, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough spot to be in for sure.
It is.
And, and again, like you said, we watched 5 games that was a completely different team than what we've seen so far. And it's incredibly frustrating because you and I have talked about it on here before, how I was like, oh, this is like what Neil Brown has lacked. Like legitimately, this is like the pieces Neil Brown's missing is like the discipline, the dumb mistakes, the stupid penalties, the just like shooting yourself in the foot. Like that's what he's always done, but he's finally not doing that. And then, like I said, the bye week hits and we've come out and that's all we've seen. And that is the worst thing we could be seeing right now because literally your job is depending on progressing this year. This is your show me year. Like every game should be getting better no matter what it looks like, but to be taking steps back, is completely unacceptable.
Yeah. 100%.
Absolutely.
100%. And I think that there were mistakes that were, not coaching driven. There were some dumb penalties, like to start the second half, we get the unsportsmanlike when we had a, huge TFL on their first play, and that allowed, Oklahoma State to flip field position, and they really dominated that field position battle in the third quarter, and I thought that hurt us a lot. And then, of course, you look at the fourth quarter on that crucial sequence, the game's tied, we get those 30 yards in penalties, you get the face mask and the late hit. So, that's not necessarily on coaching, those dumb penalties, but what is on coaching is the team, having slow starts, a couple weeks in a row, and especially when you were saying things how you fully expected this team to bounce back, and I think they did, and they still yet again in this game proved their resiliency and that they're going to continue to fight in these games. But I'm also wondering, why do we keep having these slow starts? Especially when the coaches aren't expecting them to. There's some kind of disconnect there a little bit. So I think not having the guys ready to play in back-to-back games is certainly a complaint that fans can have in regards to coaching, but there were also some blunders there that were more on the players, I guess. But, when you're in year 5, you got to put that on somebody, and Neil Brown's talked in the past, he gets all the blame for everything, so, you got to take some of that on. If you're Neil Brown, you got to take the brunt of that, I guess. Yeah,
for sure. And, you talk about it's coaching when you've got guys that are still standing around punt returners, or when you're not properly defending a Hail Mary pass and things like that. Like, brother, that has nothing to do with the kids. And you can say, well, they went out there and they did everything that we told them not to do. But, like, at the end of the day, man, like, once is a nominally, like, you do like 5 or 6 times, that's just who you are. And it's a trend,
100%.
yeah.
Wet Blanket, appreciate you hopping in, man. I got to talk to you a little bit in our pre-game stream. Good game indeed, man. Ollie Gordon, that's, I was talking, saying he was the best running back in the conference, but he might be the best running back in the country. I mean, that guy's special. I said they felt the physical game, had about 5 players get hurt. Yeah, I know. I hope they're all right, especially Daniels, the safety for y'all, man. He's a really good player. I hope he's all right moving forward. He was impressive the whole game, and especially what he did to Cole Taylor early in the game, just getting the peanut punch and the recovery there. But yeah, you guys got a really good team, really good physical team.
Yeah,
defense is coming
running back
along,
is
and
insane.
I was about to say, if your running game stays like that, man, I don't know. Oklahoma State's going to be a tough out in this conference moving forward for sure. Wet Blanket. So I appreciate the shout out. It was a good game. Bad fourth quarter for West Virginia though, unfortunately. But go ahead, Cowboys, and win some more. And I'll be watching Ollie Gordon the rest of the season just because that guy's fun to watch.
For sure. Absolutely. And to keep that good note, positive stuff going, how about my man, Justin Johnson? How about Mr. JJ?
Hey, there you go. That's a
glad to see him. Glad to see him come back out, man, because and he ran like it too. He stuck his foot in the ground and he got north and south, and he made some plays. He did a little bit of and he's always had that in him, man. And if he hasn't earned himself more playing time, then I don't know what does, because that's the first like true movement at running back I feel like I've seen
in a while,
except for Jaheim White and like earlier towards the year for a couple plays.
I think so too, because a lot of our running game has come from the quarterback position at times this season. Garrett Green had another great game with that over 100 rushing yards, but the only
I mean,
downside,
sorry,
I
go ahead.
guess, no, as I say, the only downside, I guess, if you can call it that, because I don't ever want to call it a downside when the team's, fighting to, stay in the game and fighting to win there at the end. But in doing so, what they did is they crossed 200 yards rushing. So it's the first game ever Neil Brown as a head coach has lost with 200 yards rushing, dating back to his time at Troy and through his time here at West Virginia. Anytime he's had over 200 rushing yards, he was undefeated. So finally has a blemish with over 200 rushing yards. So definitely saw us do that at the end and had to throw that in here. That's a good
Really
another gut.
sucks.
That's just a
That
gut
was,
punch on top of the loss.
yeah, and that was one of Jordan's favorite statistics right there.
Yeah.
And
All right.
no, Brown, you can't even do what you've always done, and that's just again another step back,
Yeah.
brother. And it's tough time.
Tough loss, man. And let's get into some of these late game sequences because I've got a couple I want to talk about. I mean, I've got a few things highlighted in my notes here, but I want to find the one here that I thought was pretty crucial. Of course, in the fourth quarter, to start it off, you get the good two-play sequence for Marcus Floyd, gets a pressure on second down to force an incompletion, and then a TFL on a third down screenplay. Looks like West Virginia is going to take advantage of in the game. All that coming after that E.J. Horton touchdown. Instead, you get the punt muffed by Preston Fox, caused by Andrew Wilson-Lamp running into him. And I don't know what the official ruling was because I always thought if someone was pushed into their return man that they wouldn't, they would overrule the muff or whatever, or call kick catch interference or something. But nonetheless, wasn't the scenario there. So it ends up going down as a muff, big time sequence in the game. Then you get Ollie Gordon for a touchdown. But then the sequence that I had circled here, and I've got a big circle around, is after Justin Johnson, who you just talked about, Brad, breaks a 30-yard run on the outside zone, sets West Virginia up with 1st and goal. And I've talked about, play calling throughout the season. I thought it's been pretty good, but this is one of the first entire sequences where I didn't like the play calling. And that was West Virginia's 3, play calls on the goal to go. After that Justin Johnson 30-yard run, it was 1st and goal for the Mountaineers. And can't exactly remember what the first down play call was, but the second down call, we spread it out 5 wide. And literally as soon as we spread it out 5 wide, I was like, quarterback draw. We're running that quarterback draw. And if I knew it, you knew Oklahoma State knew it was coming, blew it up, and then blew up the third down play as well. West Virginia had to settle for a field goal. And I just ended up thinking that was a huge sequence in the game. And it ended up being so because then after that, that's when you get the 30 yards and penalties that we just talked about to set up, Oklahoma State score, which also was on third down, and that should have been a tackle for a loss. I had Brendan Presley on that screenplay, makes 2 guys miss, hits a spin move, and instead of a tackle for a loss, it's a 20-some yard touchdown. So I think that sequence in general just kind of summed this game up in a nutshell for WVU because it was too many missed opportunities, too many mistakes, dumb penalties, missed tackles, story of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, and that's another tackling is also a flip point. We went from being an excellent tackling team to just we couldn't push over a piece of paper. I don't. It's just the wildest thing I've ever seen. It's just to completely, entirely flip the essence of who we are, and it's just again we thought we had an identity, and it just gets yanked out from underneath of us. And it's
well, and it's not like you can say, oh, Houston, exposed it, and now people have it because it wasn't being done the same way. Oklahoma State, killed us on the ground. I mean, they made some plays in the passing game, but mostly it was just getting guys out in space and us missing tackles and Ollie Gordon doing what he does, but they killed us on the ground, whereas Houston was killing us, throwing the football. So I don't know, man. It's mind-boggling. It really is to see the defense have a complete 180 in the wrong direction. I don't get it.
Yeah, and it's at all levels, man. Every single level is just doing worse.
Catch up on some of your all's comments here really quickly.
Yeah. Hope you all having a nice Saturday. If you went to the game, I hope you stayed as dry as possible, y'all. Say happy homecoming,
Oh, yeah. I know. Hopefully it was, at least I guess it was an entertaining game. You get those shootouts. I'm sure it was fun to watch there up until, about midway through the fourth quarter when it shifted a little bit. But Greg Adams made me laugh with this one. He said Neil Brown's chairs burned to the ground. I think a lot of people are feeling that way right now. They've completely, turned, back on the fire Neil Brown thing. I've seen a lot of that. So if nothing else, I hate the fact, the way that these past 2 games have gone, obviously you hate them in general because you hate to see the losses, but it felt like when we were on that 4-game win streak, the fan base was so close to finally all being together, united, yet again. And then here we are, and it's complete division yet again. And a lot of people are just ready to, a few people sitting here clean house. And I hate to see it, man. I want to see the fan base all together again, man. It sucks right now.
And for the first time in a minute, I guess this year, but like this felt like one of those Neil Brown wins that we just got our butts whipped. Yeah, I mean, we lost by 2 touchdowns, at home for homecoming, and
I understand.
It's just like
warranted for sure. It is.
Yeah, like Neil Brown's usually pretty good about keeping games close, but it feels like there's like 1 or 2 a year that we just get mollywop, just absolutely get our nose put in it. And that's just, again, when we're seeing consistency in what we have seen, that is not a positive sign.
Yeah. Well, and like we said, it's the polar opposite of earlier in the season when we weren't beating ourselves. This game, we literally did pretty much everything to beat ourselves. I mean, Oklahoma State, not taking anything away from them, they made a ton of plays and probably would have won regardless, but 17 points at least off turnovers. I remember that much. And then, in the fourth quarter, when it's a close game and you got to make plays that you need to make, we didn't, and Oklahoma State did. And that, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. Just not making plays. And, and I don't think that I'm being influenced by those broadcasters that were not the greatest. But, that 4th down call there at the end of the game, like I'm with them. Like everybody in the world knows you're running the option play. And to not even try to spread the field out, because like my brain was already where they were anyway. I was like, Garrett Green's just been making it work with his feet. Like, don't crowd him up like that. Like, don't suffocate the man. Let him cook. You know what I mean? Like, he's been cooking all night. Let the man cook. Don't force his hand on it. Don't let him try. They've been throwing the ball well. They've been getting some kind of running movement, but his best runs were when he was scrambling, not when he was set up to run.
Yeah. We went to the well way too many times. It's something that I've seen us do in the past. Talked about the quarterback draw that they saw coming in this one, and that hasn't worked in like 2 or 3 games for West Virginia because they had a game or 2 where it was working and they just ran it and ran it and ran it and ran it. And so now everyone, sees it, knows it when it's coming. And the past, 2 or 3 times they've ran it, I don't know if they've gained anything on it. And then same with that, 4th down play that West Virginia called. Every time they brought in those double tight ends, brought the man in motion from the other side. And, it looked like the read option, but really it was just a designed quarterback run for Garrett Green with the fake involved. And, I think if anything, at least give the option there to where you can hand it off. And I would have had somebody out there as a tag to throw to on an RPO option as well. But that definitely was, a questionable play call in this game as well. Because, as I said, they knew it was coming. He went to the well one too many times on it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on, Jackson? Appreciate you as always, Jackson Johnson. Appreciate everyone else that's tuning in and chiming in, whether you're in here live or on a playback. If you are in here live, do us a favor, hit the thumbs up, and you can do that if you're watching after the fact as well. Really helps this video's performance and future videos performances here, whether you're tuned in on the West Virginia Voice of College Football channel or the Big 12 Voice of College Football channel, and we'd ask you to subscribe to either one. Jackson, I think it does, indeed. It certainly seems to, among most of the fan base anyways that I've been seeing reaction wise, be it in the comments or some on social media throughout the game. It just depends on how extreme, I guess. Some people in here in the comments have said, they ready to clean house and fire Neil Brown. And then to me, I'm just, kind of taking a step back and watching the rest of the season through another lens and diagnosing from there, because I think, as you said, he did build up a lot of goodwill earlier in the season. So to me, the past 2 games have been a letdown, but I think he did a great job coaching within the first 5 games. So right now he's coached better for the majority of the season than he hasn't, but wins and losses at the end of the day is what matters. So got 5 more games that I'm going to remain, withhold my judgment until I see those 5 games, I guess. What about you, Brad? Anything else you want to add there?
Yeah. I mean, with the goodwill, I feel like he's definitely burned with it. Through it with the fan base, because I will say I'm like you, I'm going to step back. Like I don't think he's going to get fired at the end of the season. I think that everybody knows that we're just going to let him work it out before a decision's made, like you said, see the whole product as a whole. So I don't think there's much of a talk to point to be like, oh, is this game is his seat hot? Is that game is his seat cold? Because at the end, like we're not going to know till the end of the season, and but
Yeah. We'll see. It's just wait and see for me right now. That's how kind of where I'm at with it. But certainly was outcoached today, and you could argue was outcoached in some aspects against Houston, although I think that had a great play calling game against Houston and had some good play calls in this game. But, we mentioned a couple sequences that were standouts that were really bad. And unfortunately, those came, in crunch time. So, that falls on Neil Brown as well with him, doing the play calling duties again this season. L. Kane says Hudson Clement needs to be involved more. Kid's a stud. I agree he's great, but he was injured in this game. Unfortunately, L. Kane went down, I believe, early second half, if I'm not mistaken. That's why we were seeing a lot of E.J. Horton late. Glad to see E.J. Horton make some plays. But, yeah, L. Kane, he indeed is a stud, especially to be a freshman. So I'm hoping to hear positive news on that, during Neil Brown's press conference Monday. Hopefully Hudson's able to return. But made me think of that, so I wanted to pull that up. Earth Ether says our coaching sucks. Yates 27, appreciate that. Yeah, indeed. Give the video a like. We really appreciate it here on the Voice of College Football channel, and asking that you subscribe, whether it's the West Virginia channel or the Big 12 channel. And if you like Brad and I here, come over, check out some of our content. We're covering Mountaineer sports all the time throughout the week over on the Country Roads webcast here on YouTube. El Kane says we're a top 5 Big 12 team and proved it, but we can't stay consistent. I mean, we could be a top 5 Big 12 team, but I don't know right now. You got to wonder what happens moving forward, because we were talking about, bouncing back from that Hail Mary. You needed to try and come out and win this game, and you didn't. So now you got to wonder where this team's head's at moving forward. But I definitely think we have the potential of a top 5 Big 12 team, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, right now, because you're looking at it like TCU is not a great team. They're really not, and you beat a shoddy Pitt team, and you lose to a Penn State team, which is great. But like, what win are you really hanging your hat on right now? Texas Tech,
Good point. I mean, that TCU, I guess, is looking better. Maybe, I don't know. But the thing is also, that just kind of goes back to when I was talking about earlier, when I was wondering if our defense early in the season was a little bit of fool's.
Sorry.
And I think losing Lathan, did make a difference, as we talked about. But also, you look at the teams you played, TCU, they certainly look a lot better since Josh Hoover took over for Chandler Morris, and West Virginia played Chandler Morris. Tyler Shue, West Virginia played him for part of that Texas Tech game. I know Morton's been injured as well since then, and they're down to a third-string quarterback, but Morton was playing better than Shue. So, both the offenses that you held in check, they were playing maybe the wrong quarterbacks. And same thing goes, you can say the same thing about Pitt as well. So, I don't know. Right now, it's definitely something that's in question, is this West Virginia defense. Who are they really? I think we're going to find out a lot over the last 5 games, because right now you have 2 games against Big 12 opponents where they looked awesome. But both those Big 12 teams have since changed quarterbacks. And then you got 2 games against Big 12 opponents where they've looked absolutely terrible. So, it's all up to who this defense is right now.
Yeah. And I mean, and I would like just talking about how our defense is looking different again. Like I said, we're not getting pressure anymore. And it's like, what happened there?
Yeah. That's what I said. I know, Trey Lathan was up there with our, one of our best pass rushers. But you got to think we got somebody else that we could utilize there.
Where's James Hurd?
Well, I know he was injured. I don't know if he's back yet or not. But if he is, then that's certainly somebody you would think you want to try and get involved somehow.
Yeah,
I don't know. And we sent Marcus Floyd off the edge a couple times. Like I said, to start that fourth quarter, those 2 consecutive plays that we did it worked out great. But then, unfortunately, that's when you get the muffed punt, which Earth Ether brings up here. And he says the punt play, we always have weird game-changing plays. And literally, I could not agree more. As soon as it happened, I was actually messaging Mountaineer Paul at the time, and I literally was – the only thing I could say was, you've got to be kidding me. We have to be the unluckiest football team in the country.
Is it unlucky?
Is it like? Not even just this team, but just as a West Virginia thing, like in general. Yeah.
True.
With this, I get where you're coming from with this incarnation of the club, but just in general, as a West Virginia fan, it's like something like that always happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody just like catches a Hail Mary pass or something. That'd be wild. Does that ever happen?
And there was a part of me that was thinking when we scored the first touchdown to make it 34-41 before
Hail
Latham
Mary?
did his thing. And
How?
I was like, could it happen? Could it be us having a Hail Mary, being a victim of one, then turning around the next week and doing it?
How crazy would that be?
If anybody was going to do it, it would be WVU, but unfortunately, wasn't to be.
Nah, they're going to lose by 2 touchdowns anyway because you're going to let a running back get 110 yards in the last 2 plays of the game. So.
Bob says, we lost, have been losing for 5 years. WVU needs a complete rebuild. He means completely. He said, we were a team to be feared. Now we're everyone's homecoming. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand the frustration, but also, when were the last time we were a team that was feared since we joined the Big 12? I mean, it's been since the Big East days, Bob, so I don't think that, you can really blame Neil Brown for that. I think that, in general, West Virginia's just not been the best since they joined the Big 12. Let's just put it how it is.
Yeah. For me, though, like I said, I like the team. I like the kids that we got. I don't want to see them go. I think there's a ton of talent on our team. And, I mean, a lot of these guys are still really young. But for me, it's just they're not getting developed properly. They need somebody that's going to take better care of them than that. I know he's a great guy, wonderful person, love him to death. He's just not getting wins,
Yeah, I get it. That's why I'm waiting to see because
still losing the same
at the end of the season. Yeah, I know. I understand the frustration. I don't disagree, and I do appreciate the comment, Bob. But to me, it's just I also fear because what you're saying is true. That look at the young potential on this team, especially looking next year. And I know the defense has been let down right now these past 2 games, so you're probably talking about what young potential. But you are playing a true freshman in Cutter. Lathan was a sophomore. Let's not forget Jeremiah Trotter was going to be a really, big part of this team. That's a true freshman. And so, if we lose out or something like that, obviously I'm all for blowing it up completely and going complete rebuild. But, right now I'm still against that because also everything that you have built up, as we talk about the goodwill that Neil Brown built up, in the first 5 games. Well, when I saw that team over the first 5 games, I was thinking, okay, well, maybe this is what Neil Brown has been building towards. And we were seeing a little bit of that, I thought. And so if that is even in there just a little bit, I worry about blowing that up completely and having to go through that again to get to the point where it's year 5 of somebody else before, we're getting wins again. So you would be looking at setting your program back a decade.
Yeah.
It's a tough spot. So I'm just hoping that these 2 games turn out to be lessons learned for West Virginia. Like I said, you're at a crossroads right now. You gotta win. You gotta win moving forward, or the fans that are clamoring for a complete rebuild will get their wish if the wins don't start coming like they were earlier in the season. So gotta win.
Yep.
And unfortunately, West Virginia didn't get the win tonight. 48-34 loss to the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Drops West Virginia to 4-3, 2-2 overall. Appreciate everyone that's in here with us live. Continue to catch up on some of your all's comments here if I can find the spot that I was at here. Yeah, interesting comment from Charles Peterson here that certainly, got me looking at that game differently next week when I watched a little bit of the UCF-Oklahoma game. They gave Oklahoma all they could handle, ended up losing there at the end, not getting the 2-point conversion. But, West Virginia is going to have a tough game UCF next week. So I agree. It was looking good a couple weeks ago, 4-1, and we were wondering how far we could take that. Now it's back-to-back losses, and you're a little bit worried moving forward. And Central Florida looks a little bit scarier now than it did a couple weeks ago. So if the West Virginia defense doesn't, right the ship, I agree. We could be in trouble next week, Charles. Appreciate the comment, but hopefully it's a different West Virginia team that comes out, I guess.
Yeah. And it's even worse because, like I said, you lose by a touchdown and you try to keep it a little closer than this, then you've got something to kind of lean on. But, losing by 2 touchdowns is going to make it, if you're worried about your coach losing the team, keeping close losses is important. So definitely not helping the case all the way around, losing by more than.
True. G. Smyrna, appreciate you, man. And I remember you calling this before the game. You commented it, and it was something that I didn't realize that Neil Brown is 0-4 after a Thursday night game, which is just a weird stat. You think you'd be better given the extra preparation time. And then traditionally, as West Virginia never really does well in homecoming games, goes back a long time. Yeah, certainly I can agree with that. At least the homecoming games I remember, a lot of them have been either close games with teams you were supposed to beat handily, or sometimes you just lose outright, and that seems to be the case here lately. So crazy Neil Brown 0-4 after Thursday night games.
Mm-hmm.
But one more thing we got to throw in, Brad, because this one just pains me, man. Oklahoma State in Morgantown, they're dominating us, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's
their home.
With this win, it's going to be over a decade since we've beat them in Morgantown, because it's been since 2013. Now it's going to be till 2025 when you play them here again. So it's going to be over a decade that you've beat them in Morgantown. That's tough, man, and that's supposed to be one of the toughest places to play in the Big 12. But Mike Gundy's got something figured out.
Definitely.
Kenny, I get it, man. I'm tired of losing too in meaningful games. As Brad said earlier, don't know what win we're hanging our hat on right now, I guess. And to me, that's just all I kept thinking going into this game, man. We got a chance. This is, both these teams have identical records. I tabbed at the contender or pretender game. Unfortunately, West Virginia, proved that they're just not to that level yet. And it's got a lot of fans wondering if we will be with this coaching staff. And I get it. I'm wondering a little bit now myself. I'm still holding out, that little bit of faith, that little bit of hope, but we'll see.
Yeah.
WVU does deserve better, though, man. As someone said earlier, we did, I believe it was Bob, we were a team that used to be feared, and I want us to get back to that in the Big 12. I'm not asking for us to be Alabama or Georgia or anything, but, we've been in this conference over a decade now, and I think at least playing in a conference title game once within that decade is not too much to ask for as a Mountaineer fan. We should, be able to strive for at least one conference title appearance a decade at the very least. We should be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Krista Sisson says she's on the bandwagon as well. Done with Brown, Earth Ether, done with Brown. So a lot of Mountaineer fans, have completely turned the other way and are ready to move on now, it seems. So,
like you said, fans have a right to be frustrated.
They do. Wet Blanket, though, appreciate you bringing back a little bit of optimism here. Leave it to somebody outside of the Mountaineer fan base to hopefully provide us a little bit of a shining light. But he says our team is a good physical team. Thinks we'll win 4 more games. Sure hope so. I'd love to go 4-1 over these last 5. That'd be big, not only because then we would be 8-4, which is the exact record that I predicted, and I believe Brad predicted as well. So that'd be nice for us to have that right. But I appreciate the kind words, Wet Blanket, man. I know it seems like we're ranting and it's all negative right now, but instant reaction after that, especially following, second consecutive loss, is probably going to sound that way. And we're just worried, I guess. We're just worried moving forward right now. But appreciate that, bringing a little bit of levity back to it, Wet Blanket. And I hope you're right. And I think you do have a chance to be right, because we have seen moments where this looks like a really good football team this season. We just got to figure out somehow to get both our offensive and defensive unit playing together in the same game, and how to play the smart football we were playing earlier in the season as well, and get that all synced up at once.
Yeah, that discipline. Yeah, that discipline's a big key, man, and that's something that you can kind of get a handle on. You can fix those kind of mistakes.
Yeah. The age 27 Brown is going to be the coach the rest of the season, no matter what, but he's definitely back on the hot seat. I agree with the first part of your statement, Yates 27. I think most people agree with the second part as well. I'm still not there yet. I'm still sitting on the fence a little bit, I guess, now. But definitely I agree Brown's going to be the coach for the rest of the season, no matter what. West Virginia just doesn't fire coaches mid-season. They don't fire coaches a lot in general. But definitely he will be here for the rest of the season, and they will evaluate based on, this season and, of course, the 5 years that he's been here. But you're correct in that statement for sure. Appreciate you, Yates27. John Kelly, appreciate you always. Good Mountaineer fan tuning in and chiming in. Tough one to swallow tonight, indeed, man. He says we'll make a bowl, maybe 6 wins. Brad, where are you at right now? As far as final 5 games here, I know we had 8-4 going into the season. You still think that's possible? You leaning more towards 6 like John now? I mean, I know it's obviously probably going to feel a little bit different in a couple of days. We're a little bit more negative right now, but just early reaction from this one. I mean, West Virginia's got 5 games left. I guess we'll just kind of look down the barrel a little bit now. And how are you feeling moving forward? Do you think that they got a chance to right this ship?
It really depends, man. It really depends on. Yeah, they got a chance. They definitely could. If they could get the team that we saw at the beginning of the season back, there's definitely a chance because that team was a good enough team to hang with anybody in this conference, especially with the offense the way it does look the last two games. Like you said, if the defense can get back rolling, then anything's still possible for this team. And that's the truth. But like I said, if these losses had been more competitive, I guess you can't call Houston's uncompetitive, but if they wouldn't have been losses in the fashions in which they were a loss, I would probably tell you, oh, yeah, we still got a great chance to win every single game on this schedule. But when they look, like I said, we've seen, I feel like I'm harping on it now, but it's just the God's honest truth. When it looks the same as what I've seen the last few years, of course, I'm going to get scared. That's going to terrify me because that football was not winning football. And you showed me that you know what winning football looks like now. You know what I mean? Like, you showed me that you know what you're talking about. Like, you did it for the first 5 games of the season. If you drop the ball now, then, like.
Yeah. I know, man. I think that, like I said, it's got me. I'm just in a spot where I don't know what to think right now, personally. I mean, that's really all I can say right now. I guess it's got me at a loss for words more than anything, just because some things are polar opposite these past 2 games than they were early in the season. But you know me, I'm forever the optimist, forever going to hold out even the littlest, slightest bit of hope. And I think West Virginia can still get this thing turned around because, like you said, the offense is playing great right now, and we didn't have that earlier in the season. So if somehow, some way we can get the defense playing even slightly back to, a similar version of what they were playing earlier in the season, this team can be really good, especially if you combine that with eliminating some of these mistakes. West Virginia had a lot of penalties in this game. I believe it was 5 or 6. Multiple games throughout the season, they've had less than 5, and they've won, throughout their 4-game winning streak, they had less than 5 penalties in all of those games. So if they can get back to doing those things right, this team, I'm not giving up on just yet. I think that there's still a chance for sure.
Yeah, and there's a lot of reason to have that positivity from what we saw from the first 5 games. But
it's shifted right now.
But boy, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and looks like a duck.
I know, man. I'm trying.
It's usually a duck, man. But because I'm one of those people, and this is how I honestly feel in life is, when they show you what they are, believe them. You know what I mean? And you had me believing when you're showing me at the beginning of the season a completely different team and like turning around and doing all the right things to just turn around and doing all the wrong things again. You can't blame me. Can't blame me.
Yeah.
Can't blame you, blame everybody else. But like I said, you still got somehow, some way, you still got people that are positive about this. You know what I mean? Which is great. Like W going deep here, man. I've been loving his content.
Absolutely, me too.
Make sure you guys go check him out. I've kind of fallen off with a lot of W content outside of ours, but I've been tuning into you quite a bit. So it's been nice. I like some of the things you say. I disagree with some of the things you say as well, but I like where your mind's at. I think you think well through things.
Yeah, he's really.
Wouldn't mind having on the show sometime if I'm being honest, and I know I haven't been on the last few, but
yeah,
it'd
definitely.
It'd be cool to pop on because I think we'd have fun conversations.
Yeah, have to make that happen for sure. But for sure, you guys check out W Football Going Deep if you haven't. But comes in with a good comment here as well. And listen, this team isn't as bad as naysayers said or say. He says, and they aren't as good as some were saying when we were 4-1. Also, the whole Big 12 is better than 3 weeks ago. Yeah, 100% agree with you. I think that this team lies somewhere in the middle. They're not as bad as they've shown, at times these past 2 games, and they're not as good, obviously, as they've shown during that 4-game winning streak as far as being as good as being a team that can compete for a Big 12 title just yet. But I think there are some, things of positivity there. That's why I'm trying to, come back to those and try and keep a little bit of optimism there, W Football Going Deep, as I know you do as well, because I think this team lies somewhere in the middle there. They're not bad. They're not great. But how good they can be, we'll just have to see over these final 5 games.
Definitely. Because like you said, that offense looked great tonight, man. Like they looked like they were clicking. Garrett Green's a baller, man. Kick and play. He's got it, which is something we haven't had since Will Greer, and it's nice to have a quarterback with the it factor in there. And I love the way the guy plays.
I do too, man. I think that that's somebody that I know personally there were questions about early in the season from me and, from a lot of other fans. And I can't speak for where other fans are at, but I can certainly say from my perspective that he's proven, some of the questions I had completely wrong, answered a lot of those questions. And nothing else you can say about Garrett Green, because I think he's the type of quarterback that you might look at the stat sheet at the end of the game and you'd be like, oh, man, he only completed, 55% of his passes or something like that. But if you watch the game, he's making, crucial plays that are keeping your team in it. And that guy is a fighter. People talk about people being dogs. I think Garrett Green, that's something you can say about him. Garrett Green's a dog, man. He's a fighter out there. And, I'd love for that guy to be my quarterback. He's a guy that other players around him are going to go, to work for and fight for in and out every game. And I love having him as the leader of this team, despite everything, negative we said. That's definitely something that's a positive, was his performance, over 220 yards passing, over 100 yards rushing, I think. So, yeah, definitely glad you shouted him out. He deserves it.
Yeah, another shout out to the wide receivers as well, because we've, us and a lot of other people have been really calling on them for somebody to step up. You know what I mean? We've all been calling for it, and somebody finally did. I would say people finally did. E.J. Horton had 3 catches tonight, I think, which is consistency. That's great. Preston Fox has shown that he can catch everything. He can catch a ball when he's not even trying to catch a ball. Sometimes he just falls down and catches a ball. It's crazy, man.
Yeah. I know, man.
That was one of the craziest catches I've seen. He did not dive for that ball. He did not try to catch that ball.
He fell because I thought it was going to be pass interference.
And he got a ball in his hand.
Yeah.
Like what?
Because he's falling, and I thought he got shoved. So I'm like, oh, well, it's going to be pass interference anyways, because I didn't think he was going to catch it. And then he catches it, and I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter. I was like, oh, he caught it, good, because it's pass interference. And then luckily he caught it because there was no pass interference. He just fell. So I was like, oh, thank God he caught it. But man, yeah, it was impressive. And he had a couple like that. That back shoulder fade he caught late in the game was good. And so, yeah, I agree. Shout out to wide receivers, stepping up after they were questions early in the season. So I think now, if you're a Mountaineer fan, you got to hope that the defense responds to the way that they're being questioned. Because early in the season, the offense was leaving a lot to be desired. The passing offense was. People were questioning Garrett Green. People were questioning these receivers. Now they've came around. They've answered those questions. They're really performing well. Now people after this game are going to be really questioning the defense, and probably in particular the defensive line. So, looking at them defensive line, looking at you, West Virginia defensive line, it's your turn. We saw the quarterback and receiver make the adjustments needed and the improvements needed, and the offense is playing well. Now can you do the same in order for West Virginia to find success over these 5 games? Because I think that's what it boils down to right now. Need the defense to revert back to at least somewhat of its earlier form, and we can have something, moving forward. We can be a tough team to beat. And appreciate everyone. 100% agree with this comment by you, Gregory Krug. 100%. That's what I said earlier when we were talking about the fourth quarter and Oklahoma State's plays that they were making. Couldn't help but think that's what West Virginia's offensive line and run game was supposed to look like this season. So definitely, can't shout out Ollie Gordon enough for his great performance. That unfortunately leads to West Virginia falling 48-34 to the Oklahoma State Cowboys here in the 7th game of the WVU football season. Appreciate you guys that have tuned in here for this post-game show. We simulcasted on the West Virginia Voice of College Football channel and the Big 12 Voice of College Football channel. We're the Country Roads webcast hosts. We host a podcast where we release a couple episodes a week, and then as well put content out on YouTube here on the Country Roads webcast YouTube channel. I posted a link here in the chat to our YouTube channel as well. If you don't mind, of course, subscribe here to both Voice of College Football channels, West Virginia and Big 12. But if you like what we do, check us out over there. We put out a ton of different content, roster management stuff, covering recruiting, covering snap counts, depth chart projections, injury updates, all kinds of stuff. And we cover West Virginia basketball as well. So if you're a WVU fan, good time to follow us with basketball season about to start up as well. But I appreciate you guys that have tuned in here with us live. Had a great turnout here for this post-game show. We'll be back for these throughout the remainder of the season here on both the West Virginia Voice of College Football channels and the Big 12 Voice of College Football channels. Anything you want to add here, Brad, before we get ready to close up shop here on this one? Unfortunately, coming after another West Virginia defeat, would love to get back to, being positive in some of these moving forward. But anything you've got that we hadn't talked about in regards to this loss to Oklahoma State or this West Virginia football club on this season moving forward, you want to throw in here before we close up shop? Still got you muted, Brad.
I said no, but I'm gonna be a little bit petty here. We got a guy calling us out in the comments, asking if we were the two that were rooting for Neil Brown. And yes, I'm still rooting for Neil Brown. I still would love for this guy to get things right. I would love for him to show me next week the same team that he put on the field for the first 5 games of the year. I want that. I want that more than anything. But yeah, I'm still rooting for the guy. Do I think that he can do it right now? I don't.
Well,
I don't know if he can.
If you want me to be real petty, I wasn't rooting for Neil Brown because I was rooting for any AL Brown actually. But whatever.
Yeah, definitely. And, we're not really making excuses for him. I mean, we're critical of him every single time. We tell him what's up. And if I'm being quite honest, man, if this team is still together next year, no matter who's the head coach, all that matters. If a good chunk of this team is still together next year, they're going to be a damn good football team.
Yeah.
And they're there. The pieces are there. And, Neil Brown has done a good job at getting at least some talent in here, even though I don't think he's developed it well.
Yeah.
And so, he might finally get his chance. He's got a lot of young guys. He might finally have his chance. But, if not, if another person can come in and help these young guys, like I've said all night, a talented team, he'll, we'll see. But, yeah, I want nothing more than for Neil Brown to get this thing turned around because, I don't think anybody's, worked as hard for it as that man has. But it just hasn't worked out for him. That's how it is.
Yeah, I mean, got to get the wins, but I definitely appreciate you bringing it back to some positivity because there is some to be had. And I think John Kelly puts it the best here. Roots for the team, roots for the state of West Virginia, as do we. And we're always going to try and keep it positive. And I'm never going to root against the West Virginia coach, whoever it is, no matter how I feel about them, even if I, think they shouldn't be the coach and they're, the worst thing we've ever had. Not saying that that's Neil Brown, but I'm saying if we did have a coach that was that way, I would still cheer for him because I'm never going to root against them because then I'm effectively rooting against West Virginia and wanting them to lose. And who wants that? Why would I even be watching the game if I wanted to see my team lose? Makes no sense. So definitely always going to cheer for the coach no matter what. As Timothy says, it's always let's go Mountaineers here. But and Silas says, doesn't root for any coach, wants WV to win every game no matter who's on the sidelines. Yeah, can't disagree with that. That's the main thing. And, ambivalence says beyond disappointed. And you can be both. You can be disappointed and still root for the team, root for the coach and want them to win. Yeah. And so that's kind of where we're at, moving forward.
We're critical of the coaches, man. That's what we do. Those guys get paid a lot of money, and we have every right to be critical of them and the players now because those guys get paid a lot of money too. So, we have every right to be critical of them, but, we're still going to support for them, root for them, want them to get it right forever and always, man. And I think it's often to remember, because people talk about Neil Brown, and I think that's what really irks me when they have this conversation is, people put such a malicious intent on it. Oh, Neil Brown's damaging this program. Fire Neil Brown. He's like god awful. He's like done irreparable damage to our program. And it's just, that man didn't walk in here thinking, man, I can't wait to lose, be under 500. I can't wait to deal with this, that, and the other, man, it is what it is. And that man is coming here and giving it his best, but he's not been able to do it. But that doesn't make him, malicious in any way. And that kind of attitude is,
right.
kind of what we need to nip in the butt.
Agreed. And well said. And a great way to bring it home because I know that there's going to be a lot of negativity coming this week. So, just make sure it's coming from the right place and it's okay to be critical, but, personal attacks is a completely different story as well. And I understand the disappointment right now, understand the frustration, but, they've got to go back to the drawing board and they're going to put their best foot forward for the final 5 games and try and win those. And we as West Virginia fans got to root for the team to hopefully win as many as those 5 as they possibly can. And that's all we can do as fans is show up every Saturday, cheer on this team just like we did for this one. Didn't work out the way we wanted. Hopefully, more of these final 5 games, it works out more often than not. But unfortunately, West Virginia falls 48-34. Appreciate everyone that came in here and chatted with us live for this post-game show. Looking forward to the next one. We'll be back next week following the game against UCF. One of the first noon kicks of the year for the Mountaineers. So be with you guys a little bit earlier next week, probably be around 3:30 or so. So be sure to subscribe to the West Virginia Voice of College Football channel. Subscribe to the Big 12 Voice of College Football channel. Come check us out over at Country Roads Webcast, and we look forward to talking to you guys again next week. Hopefully it's coming after a Mountaineer win, and hopefully they can bounce back moving forward. Either way, we'll be cheering on the team, as we know you all will throughout Mountaineer Nation. For my co-host Bradley, as always, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountaineers.